Hello, everybody. I hope I'm audible. So let's begin with the post-lunch session. I request everyone to get back to the seat. So after an interesting sessions on team and empowerment, MVP, and IoT systems, we are starting with our post-lunch session with Kolkata chapter. The here Chaita Day is speaking the perfect symphony in Agile. So before starting the session, I would like to thank our founding sponsor, Innovation Roots. Innovation Roots is a leading consulting and training service provider, helping organizations to achieve business agility and beyond. It is one of the leaders and pioneers in niche publishing services and well known for content collaboration with global thought leaders, authors, and creators. For more information, request you to visit www.innovationroots.com. Do's and don'ts: join the event 5 minutes before the start time. Use high quality speakers or headphones for better sound quality. Please keep your microphones muted and video disabled as they may cause disturbance and bandwidth issue. Questions will be taken via the chat box. Please enter your questions in the chat box. At the end of the session, the facilitator or moderator will help and read out a few questions to the speaker as per the time available. Please fill the feedback form after the event to help us understand more about the event management. We appreciate your cooperation. With this, let's begin with the fourth session of the day. Over to you, Jaita.
Thank you, Prashant. Yes, I hope my screen will. Yes, I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, it's visible.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this session called The Perfect Symphony in Agile. I have kept a very simple session, mostly related to what we experience in our day-to-day life. And I hope everyone will have a connect with my session today. And at least, and the takeaway from the session would be to, and the takeaway would be that they're able to take back at least some understanding of how to implement Agile in our day-to-day activities. Thank you. I would like this session to be interactive. So if you have any questions or anything, do put it in the chat box. We will handle it at the end of the session. Okay. Briefly, this is the agenda. We have a simple business case, something that everyone faces every day, and how what we did and what was the outcome. And then we started initially with the traditional waterfall model. Then we introduced a mix, and then we went to Scrum, to Agile, and then finally how we are learning to get better with our Agile implementation every day. This is briefly going to be our agenda for today. Okay, what did we have in the business case? We had signed up with a new customer. There was a range of technologies starting from legacy to mainframe, and we had multiple point of contacts at the customer's end, each of whom had to be assigned a different team, and each customer was either working in a different part of the domain or was working actually in a different technology. So we had to cater to everything. And with a new customer, which the management was very focused on and wanted us to deliver results quickly because they were expecting a lot of business to come downstream. So we did the usual things. we created for each of the customer contacts and each of their projects, we created a project. And we introduced several business managers and project managers. And we assigned them to each of the projects. And then we had to recruit the team. So all the verticals and competencies that we had in our organization, we connected with them to recruit the resources. And we followed a typical execution model, which started with discovery, went to design, and we did coding and finally deployed the code, and then it came back to us for maintenance. We were very rigorous in the processes that we followed, and we were expecting the returns to be very high. So everyone was actually giving it more than their 100%. Everyone was working late. We were going through all the trials in our day-to-day activities, but we were hopeful the results would be excellent, because we stuck to a great amount of discipline in our work. Okay, after then few months down the line, okay, some of the projects that we did were very successful, and the customers really appreciated those. But the projects were delivered actually after a gap of many months, and then those that we delivered also a lot of rework and changes actually flooded us, and we had to actually again restart the projects, maybe under a different project ID. We started new projects, and then the customer complaints started coming that we are actually missing the cutover date. This was the go live date. And of course, like, there is no point having those discussions that these are changes which came because either the customer wants a delivery or they don't want a delivery. So it was pointless to have those discussions, like when everyone was in a fighting mode. And also the team was overworked, and like they had not taken vacations. They had been working day and night, and team morale was very low, and we started having a very high rate of attrition. And then this attrition actually increased our challenges, because we had to reskill the people. When we inducted new people, we had to reskill them, and then we had to go through again the knowledge transfer. So on the whole, though we had some amount of success, most of the areas we were challenged. So after trying several things, one of the things we decided to do was use Scrum. So in some of our projects, we started Scrum as a pilot in some of the projects. Okay, with the introduction of Scrum, actually we converted all the requirements into user stories. We groomed the stories, put them in the product backlog, and then during the sprint planning, we would push them into each of the sprints. We had around 2-week-old sprints, and we delivered at every 2-week intervals. Okay, and after that we went through the sprint retrospective, the sprint review. Usually most of the cases that we did Scrum, the sprint review, the customer point of view was that the delivery had met their expectations. However, because any changes the customer suggested, we were able to put them into the product backlog and maybe push them into the next sprint. So it was a regular interactive session with everyone at the customer's end. And we did not have to spend a lot of time on rework, which we were doing previously. We had spent so much of time on rework, like reworking on what we had done. Here, at least what we completed once, we could mark it as done and send it to the customer. But the result of this was, like, though it was an iterative development and there was flexibility and we time boxed it, some of the projects actually magnified in scope because things kept getting added to the backlog, and it was very difficult to pinpoint the end dates of some of the projects and the programs. And because it kept expanding, again we came across with our day-to-day challenges of employee attrition, and overall the morale of the team was again low. Though in some pockets the customers were satisfied, they felt like they had been receiving some value for the investment that they made, and maybe the team morale improved a little, but still overall, because the projects continued for so long, it became a challenge. So we decided to have a more it's a so we decided to take up the more holistic approach. We decided, let us go into agile, move into implementing agile across the project, as well as move to safe agile. The advantage of this was now we could involve, like we started implementing agile in smaller areas, like even the management was involved, like all the work that the management did. Yeah, that also we tried to like work out like in an agile way. Of course, yeah, decision making was quicker and there was less rework, and we were able to get all the support services also, like resources and our and our computer support systems and all the other teams under the agile process. So we spent a lot of effort. The cost was very high, but we were expecting a lot of returns. And maybe 3-4 months down the line, we were expecting very high returns. But unfortunately, that also, like the amount, the returns we were expecting, that did not happen. So actually, team was mechanically following the process that the consultants were telling us, and there were still conflicts within the team. Okay, we hired a lot of consultants actually to implement this process, and each consultant came with a different perspective, and conflicts increased. Okay, though we actually, the entire organization felt like the interaction across the organization actually had increased a lot. We were now able to interact with the senior management more frequently. We had our daily scrum meetings, so the interaction with the team. Okay, so the interaction with the team used to happen every day. We interacted with the customer. We interacted with the team. We interacted with the management. But overall, still there were a lot of conflicts with everyone. What was happening under these circumstances is a single mail from the customer coming up, and everyone would go into the firefighting mode. We would drop all our processes and everything, and everyone was concerned only about the part from where the escalation has come. Okay, I see a lot of feedback in the chat. Yeah, okay, maybe, but I have to, I do not want to exit the screen. Maybe I'll look at it later on. Okay, we'll take them afterwards. But team still found the process very cumbersome and the morale did not improve. So we were trying to brainstorm to find out what did we do wrong. Okay. We did some surveys, we interacted with the team, and then we found that most of the team felt it was actually an overhead to do agile. There were so many all of a sudden we had been bombarded with so many terminologies and we had to implement them. And then there was a pressure to follow the waterfall model. Even though we followed agile, we did the daily scrum. There is a tendency actually, even with all these tools, there's an inherent tendency in everyone to implement the waterfall model. Because what happens is, like, the the way the customer was sending us the work, most of the project managers wanted to actually define a requirement document and get a sign off. So what, like, we found that some projects were so off the agile track that they had done one sprint only to do requirement document. Then they did a sprint actually to do the design. And then when it came to development, they did another, they did another sprint, which is actually totally against the principles of agile. Okay, and then the team members did not want to take up the agile roles. They thought that these were bureaucratic positions which actually are being given to them. And of course, and the project managers were pushing the teams to deliver more. Okay, like to increase productivity and all the typical things like that we have in our day-to-day services. Like everyone is being forced to do more. Please deliver more. If they have completed something and we have marked it as done, then more stories were getting assigned in each sprint. Okay, sometimes we completed all the stories in the sprint and then there was pressure to take up more and more stories. And overall, actually, it was that the company culture actually contradicted what the agile philosophy is. So we had to work on making the entire company agile. So let's see what we did next. Yes, this is the conclusion that we came at. We had all the tools in the work, like we had started using all the agile tools, but we were never really agile. The agile values were not were not defined before we implemented the methodologies. We went with the methodologies, we followed everything in copybook style, but we were never really agile. Okay, the philosophy of agile that we needed to incorporate and inculcate in everyone, we were never really following that. So what were this? So here we did a lot of brainstorming, and this was actually our key areas. Okay, we found that there was an overall hierarchy in the system, and agile always says that we need not follow an hierarchy. There is a tendency, like you will see you will find many organizations, like they offer you positions, they say that this is a scrum master come project manager role. There is nothing like a scrum master and a project manager role. The two roles are totally separate and they cannot be the same role. And there is no reporting structure to the scrum master. But everyone kept falling back to that model where everyone reported to the scrum master, and the scrum master was running the show in the waterfall mode. And also each of the organization support system were actually working in silos. We never had any interaction with them. So this is what we had to minimize. We had to change the culture. We had to tell them that the agile coach and scrum master are here to are here actually to facilitate the process. They do not drive the process. Okay, there is nothing like beating up the people to get things done. We have an interactive module and we work with everyone. Okay, we work together with everyone, and the scrum master is a facilitator. Okay, he's a like we use the term servant leader, which all of us have heard in our trainings for Scrum. We are actually the servant leader. So to inculcate this kind of a culture, we started having regular trainings and best practice sessions with the team. We broke up the team into smaller groups. And once a week, we have our best practice sessions where everyone interacts. They discuss the challenges they faced, and then they go back and implement it in their projects. And yeah, that is one thing we did. And we got in more agile coaches whom we trained. And the agile coaches actually were part of all the processes that were being implemented. And the focus was to make everything value driven. Okay, being agile in behavior, that actually was the crux of the solution that we had to implement. Okay, agile behavior is a thought process that involves understanding, collaborating, learning, and staying flexible to achieving high performance results. Okay, we had to give, everyone had to work with an ownership. We had to give the team the ownership. And everyone interacted. There was no such thing as hierarchy. This was actually the key thing about being agile in behavior. And yeah, then we have the agile mindset builds in quality by allowing teams to maximize value and minimize waste. We try to deliver value and with very little waste. The teams are self-organizing and cross-functional. You see the traditional team, there's a hierarchy. This is just what we mentioned. There's a project manager and the team. Scrum Master is a servant leader. He's part of the team. And cross-functional meaning, before we used to have like defined technologies or defined work for each of the team members. But now within a sprint, if one member has actually completed the work and he's finds that another member is struggling maybe in a different technology, everyone does get involved and try to help him. So it's either we are working as a team or we are not working at all. Okay, there is no place as such in an agile environment for this kind of individual heroics. Okay, the agile way of working is actually like playing a symphony, like how we have all seen how the orchestra plays. There is one conductor and everyone looks up to him and everyone comes in and plays their part, and it is perfectly, and this and there is perfect synchronization. This is exactly what we need to do in agile. The main three mantras of agile behavior are, first of all, is staying aligned. Every team has its own unique way of getting work done. So it is critical we implement a space where everyone can stay aligned. One example is especially now during this work from home, we'll find that everyone has a different hour of working. So we allow them to work according to their hours, but we try to keep a common window, maybe a 2-3 hour window when we have our stand-ups and the whole team is working together. Okay. And then there should be then optimized and sustained flow, by which I mean there should be regular flow of deliverables, implementation of incremental delivery, reduce batch sizes, allowing teams to maximize value and minimize waste. We do not spend a lot of time on rework nowadays, and we try to get the maximum value. Like whatever we have delivered actually is as per the customer expectation and does not need any other changes or anything. That is the spirit of agile. And then there is innovation and continuous improvement. We try and get better every day at it, allowing teams to provide collaborative and constructive feedback, new ideas and different approaches opens the door for experimentation. Teams have the freedom to experiment. Along with collaborating, it is required to optimize the workflow and encourage innovation. Teams can bring in their individual members and teams can come up with their own ideas, and we are actually continuously implementing those ideas and also making an environment suitable for everyone to grow. These are actually the main three principles that we try to follow to keep the organization agile. Okay, now after we come to this, like after coming all this, we found like we have to maintain this, because every time, like supposing 1 week we don't have the best practice session or we don't have an interactive session, then things seem to fall back again in the waterfall model. Here here the idea is actually we encourage individual performances and how they work. However, the focus is always on the work done as a team. Either the whole team has succeeded or no one else is succeeded. Teams are pushed to push themselves. There is no one pressurizing them to do their work. Okay, and results actually improve with each iteration. And after implementing all this, we found there are actually there are less ruffle feathers, and everyone is not working late night and doing all the work, trying to finish all the work in the first week itself. And like I said, there are no ruffle feathers during an actual project lifeline. So things are actually much better, and everyone is like overall senior management is happy, and we don't go and we rarely get those escalation emails now from the customer. Those escalation emails which used to cause everyone to go overboard, and we would throw all our processes out of the window. Those incidents have become rare. And we have actually when we have the sprint review, we try to involve the senior management, and actually even the CEO has become available to come and attend he comes and attends the sprint review. He gives his feedback. He's also aware of the circumstances under which the team is working. So overall, there is a environment of collaboration. So that is the main thing. Maybe a slight deviation in the agile process or some lapse in the process, that doesn't cause everything to do. Or actually implementing the agile process rigorously also did not help us. It is only by changing the mindset. It is only by changing the mindset that we were able to mm, obtain the results. So overall now, yeah, these are the results that we obtained after our first feedback session. Customer satisfaction increased. The ratings that the customer provided us at the end of the quarter was much higher than it had been before. And we were actually delivering things quicker. Overall, the return on investment was better, and there is more predictability. We don't have unforeseen circumstances actually bombarding us and like throwing everything on track. And team is actually flexible. Team and everyone there's a flexibility in taking up assignments. And also like the customer now interacts with us regularly. Okay, and he provides us the feedback on which assignments we should take up, and if the team has any, and he also listens to the team if they have any feedback to provide. And also the employees have become more engaged. Okay, the regular sessions that we have with the customer or also with the employee teams, there is overall more I mean, this is not a easily measurable feature, but overall we still feel that the employees are more engaged. Like no one is as reluctant as they had been before to take up the agile roles. And yes, it's not that most people take up the agile roles, but we actually, if they want to take up the other kind of roles, it is like maybe across in another project. So the same person might be actually having an agile role in one project. He may be a scrum master in one project, and he's a technical lead maybe in another project. So that is how we try to make things work. We try to balance it out with the percentage allocation and as things can be. So this is actually how we are trying to achieve that perfect symphony. Okay, that is striving. We are working towards a symphony of project deliverables and delivering in alignment with the customer expectations. But overall, this is not something. I mean, there is no silver bullet as such. Okay, for this, we do get better with time. the more we practice how things are done in Agile, we are able to implement. Like the first hiccups that we had, we overcame them. Now we have the next set of challenges, and then again we are working towards that. With each iteration, actually, we are getting better. There are lessons learned from each iteration, which we try to document and then pass it on to the next set of people. But this is an ongoing process which must go on, and that we felt actually is the only way to make Agile work. Okay, otherwise, like Agile again was becoming a set of documents and roles, and and we were actually following the waterfall model under some terminology. So like maybe at this time it looks like we have some understanding of the Agile process, but we need to get better at it. We might have all the certifications in SAFe or in Scrum or everything, but it does not really work unless we really get into that mindset. It's a continuously evolving process. Okay, this actually briefly is what I wanted to discuss. So now maybe I'll take a look at the questions. Okay, I'll take a look at the questions and we can discuss them.
Thank you, Jeta.
Yes.
So, Jeta,
Yes, Prashant.
you had an interesting uh, journey in transformation. So here we have a few questions.
I think there are some questions in the chat already. I have to minimize the screen to look at the chat.
I know.
Or
I will help you out. I'll help you
okay.
out on that. Just a second. Okay. So Kohinoor Biswas asked, is it a good practice to define a broad backlog upfront?
What did you say? Is it a good practice to define a broad backlog?
Broad backlog upfront. Is it a good practice?
Actually, Kohinoor, it is an evolving process. Okay, we will start initially with maybe with a backlog where maybe there are 10 items. Okay, and we will groom those 10 and start the first sprint. And the backlog, maybe as we go along, like more and more stories get added to the backlog, we can add them to the next sprint. Usually we prefer actually to not change anything in a current sprint, but sometimes if team members, in very rare situation, if team members have completed their work in a sprint and they have time, we might push one or two items from the backlog, but that is something we usually try to avoid. We usually take up only one, like we define the sprint and how many user stories we're going to take in the sprint, and the backlog keeps evolving. Actually, the sprint backlog remains constant, but the product backlog actually keeps
when you are creating a broad backlog upfront, means it doesn't mean that you are committing that upfront, right? It's a
we are not committing unless we come to a sprint. We are not committing.
So commitment is done at the end, last moment, but the backlog is there in front of you and it gets reprioritized.
Yes, we prioritize the backlog, and we have regular backlog grooming sessions. Actually, almost 2 sessions in a week we have, and the customer is also involved in this backlog grooming session. So that really helps, because any concerns that we have, we are able to actually discuss and trash that out instead of like doing it after we have delivered. Okay. Next question is,
a follow-up question is, how was, with the Kohinoor Biswas only, how was inter-team dependency managed?
Inter-team dependency, like if I get your question right, you mean like if there is dependency on, there is, okay, once we have defined the resources for a sprint, we do not involve other people usually. So if there is some work, like maybe the front end or and back end code has to be integrated, then we define a separate sprint for it. There is a separate story for integration, because one of the projects I think we did, like for each story, they had a front end. They had a separate story for the front end, they had a separate story for the back end, and a separate story for the integration. So accordingly, across sprints, it got distributed. Okay, and then where we had to have the back end and front end integrated, maybe we took up a number of stories, and all the team members concerned with the back end and the front end, we assigned them to that sprint.
Okay. Okay. So there are some couple of comments here. Then afterwards we have this thing from Manish Srivastava. The question is, did involved team members worked in hybrid model with multiple projects in SDLC Waterfall to Scrum migration process? How were they
Hybrid.
placed? Was it?
Okay,
Yeah.
Manish, your question is on hybrid model, right?
Did the team worked on hybrid models with multiple projects in SDLC Waterfall before Waterfall, when you transform from Waterfall to Scrum migration? How
Yes,
was
before.
the team placed actually?
Okay. Okay. No, because okay, yes, Manish, we have yeah, we like before we used to have multiple projects, and each of them followed the different like each of them followed the waterfall model only mostly. Okay. So, and as such, the hybrid model we did not follow. Once we moved to agile, we did not stick to a mix of like agile and waterfall. When we moved to agile, it was trying to keep the process as much as agile as possible. Okay, there's another question from Manish. Highlight technology changes with when SDLC was migrated from waterfall to Scrum for customer benefits. Okay, technology changes, like, okay, technology for agile, we used one of the tools. We initially started with Jira, and yeah, but now we have moved to Microsoft actually, because the overall at the organization level, they decided to move to Microsoft. So it's actually, yeah, it's actually Microsoft DevOps, which is used for our day-to-day work.
Okay. Okay. So there is a question from Amar. He asked how to strike a balance between waterfall and agile.
Okay, like this one, see, what are the circumstances when you will do an waterfall project, and what are the circumstances when you will take up an agile? If your requirement is clearly defined and you know what needs to be done, then it is best to actually take up the waterfall model. But if you find requirements are changing, and actually they keep changing every day, then we should go for the agile model. But if you have requirements clearly defined, and you and you don't foresee any changes coming, then I don't think it's a good idea to go for agile. Then you should strictly go with the waterfall model.
So here he is giving an example where Amar is saying most of the support projects are on waterfall and development projects are in agile. In that place, how I think how Jesus you can make that sync, how you balance those type of a team. Is there any dependency between these two teams, or you try to keep those two things like independent teams completely non-dependent? How did you manage that type of scenario, or was there any such scenario in your case?
Can you repeat, like, what is his next part? What is he saying? How do you strike a
It's
balance
saying
between,
at the
yeah,
bottom is the
for support
continuation is
project?
put. So
Okay.
support projects are on waterfall.
Yes, for the support projects, actually, when the tickets come in, we add the for actually we are trying to follow agile as much as possible, and like for the support projects, what happens is whenever a ticket is logged, we assign it as a story in the backlog and prioritize, yeah, depending on the ticket priority. we prioritize it, but we don't take them up during that sprint. But in yeah, but having said that, there is also another part that we have a separate team which caters to those priority one tickets which come, which need to be immediate. Like they actually follow, yeah, we follow the traditional model there. Like the team remains on call whenever a ticket is received, they work on it on a priority, and the team is on call. Like we have 3 shifts planned for them. There, actually, we don't add those stories to the backlog. Okay, they take up the ticket. The customer has a system where they log in the tickets, and if there is a priority one ticket, they solve it immediately. But if there is actually a lower priority ticket and we find some development work needs to be done, then we push it to the backlog to be taken up as a story.
Okay. Okay. There are some more questions coming. This question from Jiva. Question on sustainability, he says, of mood and energy. We start the project, trainings are done. Almost BAU is on. Ceremony seems little dry and boring. Almost known techniques to cheer up to known team. Okay. How to cheer up the self, agile coach, SM themselves, and the team in the long term. Can you please share your thoughts? Yes, you're as agile coach and SM, we
Yes,
try to
one thing,
build up
this
the
is a very
motivation.
interesting question.
How
Actually,
about
one thing we did is, okay, the Scrum Masters are not involved in the appraisal. Because if it did, if we involve the Scrum Master in the appraisal, then simply everybody would have, like there would have been a reporting like structure in place. Like even though we did not specify the reporting structure would have come in place. We have separate group of project managers, and all the teams are actually assigned, like everyone is under like under those project managers. Like there may be somebody who is a BOA head, but for a group of projects, he might be a project manager. He is actually responsible for the appraisal. He does not necessarily have to come on the day-to-day Scrum meetings and everything. And it's up to him how he will take the feedback. That is the model we have implemented now. Okay, initially we did start like with a mix of project manager and Scrum Master, but that does not work. Okay, it did not work at all. It totally failed because the projects were not like the daily stand-ups and all had become actually like formal discussions. Now that the Scrum Master is not doing the appraisal, the sessions are more interactive and everybody is able to put their thoughts. And yeah, but we have seen this, no, the minute the project manager joins in any of the stand-ups, then the tone actually changes. Okay, and but we try to we try to discourage that. The appraisals are done separately by the seniors in the company, and the team works on their own. They try to we try to bring cohesion in the team.
so?
Ceremonies are dry and boring. Yeah, they actually are sometimes, unless we have something like, unless actually everyone has something interesting to bring to the table. Okay, if people have to talk about their own work, I think they generally like it. But yeah, but if you make a lot of if you make a lot of like formal ceremonies, then they do become boring. So if we try to make it interactive, give everyone the opportunity to speak, then the meetings become more interesting.
Okay, yeah, true.
Okay.
So when in the top we see there are some, when you said that you're moving from waterfall to manage, there were a lot of senior management involved into it, senior project managers, uh, delivery managers, right, who have a lot of experience. Did you face any challenge in transforming them to make them towards helping them to work towards being agile?
There were a lot of challenges. I mean, this is just what, like for a 40-minute discussion, I just had to bring, but there were a lot of challenges. There was a lot of resistance, okay? Because if you still meet a delivery manager, there are many who will tell you this agile thing doesn't work. Okay, but getting them oriented, we initially did a training session, then we have our best practice sessions, then sometimes like during our best practice session we do some role plays also. and everyone gets to understand, like it's a more, we are giving more feedback. But actually, and some of the delivery managers maybe have changed now in their perception, but we still have a long way to go actually to bring them everyone. But the good part is the CEO is very involved now. He's very keen on Agile, and he even comes to all the meetings. So that has been a great help that we have been able to bring him.
Absolutely, it's not a
Been able to
destination,
bring
it's
him
a
a little
journey.
Agile.
True.
Yes, you were saying
So,
something.
no, obviously it's a journey, it's not the end destination. So it's an ongoing process which will take some time for them also to transform.
Okay, there is one question: is how to motivate after no hike post appraisal to prevent? I don't know.
Yeah.
Do we have the, I don't know if we have the answer to this. This is a separate aspect and not maybe in the scope. That is something we face daily, yes, but that is not in the scope of this discussion. We are discussing Agile. Okay, from Manish, we have another question. Impediments if is not updated regularly by PO, how frequently backlogs are being reviewed after completion? Like I mentioned, no, we regularly have grooming sessions actually outside the sprint. We actually, for each of the sprints, we almost have like two grooming sessions, like which run into 3-4 hours in a week. Okay, it has to be regularly updated. So during the meeting itself, all the stories are updated. So there is no dependency on the PO to go and do it later. Okay, if we leave it for later, it might not get done. So we do it during the meetings itself, and the meetings have become regular. Like that is what we have done as of now. Maybe we'll learn other things as we go along. Okay, Ahmad, you are very concerned.
Uh,
Concerned, yes. Yes,
yeah,
this is a challenge we are facing every day. No, everyone is getting, but when new people come in, we have to train them. And there are so many other factors in this attrition. No, it is not within the scope of this agile actually. There are many factors which make, and especially now with so many people, like most of the offices have started calling people to come and work from office, and people are again very reluctant to come and work from office. They're resigning because they have got permanent jobs which allow them permanent work from home. And of course, the salary factor is also there. So those things actually impact. I mean, they do impact the attrition. And work from home, yes, actually in the agile way, I think in the agile play, in this work from home scenario, agile helped us make it more interactive. Like we're having so many meetings where everybody comes on, and we try to have on camera meetings as much as possible, because when we were working in office, there is a personal connect, okay, which is difficult to establish while doing it, because you have a team. Okay, you might go out to have coffee with the team, or you or the team is sitting next to you and is aware of your day to day interaction. But with work from home, suddenly, okay, with work from home, suddenly actually all this changed. And yeah, that is why we, at least one session in the day with the team, no, we encourage everyone to have at least an in camera session. Okay, and to see how much of like the interaction within the team we can increase. So but yeah, like he says, this phase too shall pass.
like okay, right, okay, true. So before we end this session, one simple question from my side. So who,
Yes,
according to you, you think that who plays a critical role in maintaining this symphony
maintaining the symphony,
from
my take would be actually it is everyone. It has to be like starting from the team members, all the team members, the scrum master, the project owner, the product owner, and the agile coach. Everyone has to contribute. Actually, it has to be a teamwork.
true? That's true. Thank you, Jaita, for your insights. And with this, I think we come to the end of this particular session. And I think there are a lot of questions related to hikes and other things, how to avoid attrition and all. I think next session from Chennai chapter may also, we can take these questions ahead, where the next session is on value innovation through agile lean strategy. So I think some of your questions may get answered there too, or more the answers more, you can get some overview there also there too. So thank you, Jeta, on behalf of the community, and we also thanks for the participants for being so interactive.